Here are 3 different price targets that I have for XDC in 2025, even though nothing I say is financial advice and how these are all just hypothetical scenarios. But people often keep telling me $3, that's your price target, but sometimes they want to know a worst case scenario price target. And that for me right there is going to be $2 because some people may think it's too much, but I think it's actually very reasonable as a worst case, especially when I consider just how special XDC is. Because keep in mind, when you take a look at the XDC network, it's an enterprise-grade blockchain protocol that is purpose-built for global trade and finance. People may laugh at this market. They think it's oversaturated because they see these big players. They see Ripple. Of course, we all know that. XLM, right? We take a look at XRP. People like to say, oh, Ripple is going to be this next best thing. And I'm not saying they're both going to disappear off into the abyss while XDC goes up. I'm not saying that. I think that when you have a market that is predicted to be worth up to $5 trillion by 2028, according to Mordor Intelligence, I highly doubt that there's going to be not enough room for the players to eat, so to speak. Because, for instance, take a look at the car market. There are so many car brands, right? But there's not only just one car brand, for instance, or just 5. I mean, there's a bunch. For instance, take a look at Volvo. Does that have 90% market share? No, it does not. But then still, take a look at the amount of employees it can hire, tens of thousands. Also, take a look at other car brands. You know, it's not going to be one that dominates everything, usually in some markets. So when I take a look at something like the car market, it's so massive to the point that even the relatively small players, they can already do very successful. So when I take a look at the global trade and finance market, yeah, sure, there's other projects focused on that. You know, for instance, like Ripple, you take a look at XLM, or should I say Stellar. So when you take a look at stuff like that, yeah, I highly doubt that there's not going to be enough room for something like XDC to really prosper. Not to mention as well, if you take a look at what powers the XDC network, that is the XDC protocol. Now, the XDC protocol is actually very fantastic because some people may think it's boring, but in my opinion, here's where the party really begins because the XDC protocol has the ability to be integrated with internal legacy systems, like for instance, Swift payment databases. So that's a thumbs up for me. Swift is very massive in the world of banking. I think we all know that. But even besides that point, take a look at also, it has the ability to integrate data into the blockchain using something called the ISO 20022 Electronic Data Interchange Standard. Now, the name is very overly complicated, I understand that, but this is very special because that right there is currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world. So it's not like something that is experimental or something like that. And they're using that, by the way, for inter-organizational data exchange. So when you think about that, the fact that XDC, again, the protocol, can integrate data into the blockchain using that, that's kind of insane to think about, really. Now, people may think that, okay, that's not cool enough, that's not interesting enough. Well, I disagree because XDC has great exposure, listed in a bunch of major exchanges, and also on top of that, it has the fan base. If you think about how XDC doesn't do much advertising, but it doesn't really need to because by automatically being listed in a bunch of major exchanges, by having a fan base that is that passionate, I think that's marketing in and of itself, even though it's indirect, I would say, but it's kind of like natural in a sense. And this does really help boost XDC in terms of its attention because people oftentimes, you know, they talk about XDC, not to mention listed in a bunch of major exchanges. People are more aware of XDC, I think, as of right now than back then because XDC has done well, much like I predicted. And not to mention being listed in that many major exchanges, this is catching a lot of people's attention. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that everyone's going to love XDC because everyone has their own preferences. But in my opinion, this is a must-have in my portfolio because the way you take a look at it is that it's like the third version of like basically XRP, or should I say second version because, you know, XLM kind of reminds me of XRP. And then when it comes to, you know, XDC kind of reminds me of that as well. It's kind of like the trilogy, if that makes sense. But of course, great things do take time and patience. I still believe in XDC. I think better days are ahead. And when I consider all of that, XDC reaching the price of $2 during this bull run, I just don't see why not. And by this bull run, of course, I mean 2025. And I'll explain later on in the video why I believe the peak could hypothetically happen this year. But yeah, even besides that point, $2, I don't see why not. Now, my next price target for XDC, which is my second price target, that's going to be $2.50. Now, again, this is not a worst case. This is not a best case either. This is just somewhere in between $2.50. And why do I think that this is hypothetically realistic? It's because if XDC were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $37 billion, Well, to be a little bit more specific, it's actually around 37.3 billion. Let's say we round it up to 37.5. But even besides that, that's not too bad, right? We've seen far inferior projects, in my opinion, reach far higher. Like, take a look at, for instance, BNB. That at one point reached over $100 billion in market cap, and that was back in 2021, keep in mind. Now, why do I use this example? It's because back in 2023, according to Crypto.com research, slightly over 2% of the crypto hacks that happened actually occurred on the BNB Smart Chain ecosystem. So that's not great. I don't think that BNB is that dynamic. And if BNB can reach over $100 billion in market cap, why can't XDC go to something that's basically nearly pretty much $70 billion less than that? Or should I say compared to its peak? Yeah, I just don't see why not. The way you take a look at it is that XDC is that special, and I think it's that amazing. Now, my third and final price target when it comes to XDC is, of course, going to be $3. And if you've been watching my videos for quite a while now, you'll know that this is the case. But of course, I made this video because people wanted to know my worst case scenario price target, and they want an updated version. So yeah, I'm going to talk about it. But here's the thing. When I take a look at something like XDC, okay, why is $3 not that unrealistic? It's because, first of all, not only would the market cap not be crazy, considering current circulating supply would be around $45 billion, which isn't too bad, in my opinion. I already explained that in the previous section, why I don't think that's too much. But if we move on further, why do I think this could be a reality? It's because take a look at, for instance, there's currently over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. That's more than ever before in history, pretty much double when compared to the peak of the 2021 bull run. So if the bull run back then looked that amazing, imagine right now. Now, of course, it's going to take some time. Now, how much time? Usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. And the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April of 2024, of course. Now, this is only based off history, but if we assume that 18 months from then is actually around October of this year, 2025, which is why I titled this video, 2025 price targets. Now, granted, things could maybe happen a little bit sooner, not just strictly in October, maybe a little bit later. Who knows, right? But this is a good benchmark. I can't tell the future, but I can only speculate and take a look back at history and also analyze the fundamentals. And again, if let's say XDC were to reach the price of $3 during this bull run, I really don't see why not. You take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption, all of that right now is just through the roof. And the way you take a look at it is that when it comes to a bull run, it could be very special this time around. Even Charles Hoskinson shares the same mindset in a sense. And by the way, Charles is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Cardano. He does predict that in the next 1 to 2 years, based on a video that he was a part of back in November, he could very well see Bitcoin reaching either $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. So just imagine that. I think that, if anything, gives a good gauge as to just how amazing this bull run could be. We don't know exactly when Bitcoin is going to reach its peak. We don't know exactly when. Also, it's going to peak also something like XDC. But hypothetically, when I consider all of those amazing factors, XDC at the price of $3 during this bull run, I just don't see why not. And my strategy is going to stay the same. Anytime an income, acquire, hold, and I just wait. I'm dollar cost averaging, and I'm not giving up when it comes to XDC and also the whole crypto space overall, because I think better days are ahead, and I feel like we're so close to the finish line. I feel like it's within grabbing distance, but again, all I got to do is stay patient, and I really can't wait. And that right there are 3 price targets that I have for XDC in 2025. And make sure to subscribe if you gained value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's Philly the Captain, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace. Bye.